This is the Comfort Lake Watershed District Special Meeting. Starting at 5:30, and today is December the 17th. And we'll start off by doing a roll call. And I'll do that. Manager Baki.
I am here.
Thank you. Chris, Manager Loth.
Here.
Thank you. Manager Taves.
I'm here.
Thank you. President Schmaltz, President. Manager Anderson, not here yet. So we've got a majority, so we can get started now. The purpose of this meeting is to continue our work on strategic planning on the vision, mission, and values, and I will get started as soon as Yanni signs on here. Any comments or questions you want to talk about while we're waiting? Anybody?
Well, depending on how much, if he's for any further delayed, one of the directors was to go back to staff and get some input. And maybe we could start with that. I don't know, maybe Emily, you want to email that out to everybody? And they'd all could have it or post it, hold up one of the two.
Sure, one moment.
That was good feedback.
All right, I just emailed that out and Yanni's just joined the Zoom.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Yanni, how are you?
Doing well. How's everybody doing?
Good, ready to go.
Right. Let's do this. Okay. Okay. Start off with summary and agenda. As long as, do I have the floor? Are we good with that? Meeting
Yes,
start.
fine, yeah.
Formalities are done. Great. Okay. We were able to kind of make a ton of really great progress last time, right? And it was last week, so hopefully it's still fresh in our brains and we can still kind of remember where we are and really kind of move forward here. My hope is that we can get, I don't know, 95 to 100%, right, kind of dialed in today with some of this stuff. I would love to start kind of compartmentalizing and prioritizing and really diving into the 10-year plan and starting to incorporate that into the kind of business planning stuff that we're doing. I know this is an important part and I know there's a lot of moving pieces, but I feel like we're very close, right? And maybe with a little subtle wordsmithing based on some of the kind of feedback that I've had, we can kind of define some stuff here that makes us all feel pretty good to be able to move forward with. So we're going to start off and just kind of present that. Okay, so we'll go through it and we'll start to go through some of the feedback. We got some great feedback from the staff. So I want to make sure that that has enough space for today for us to all look at and take into consideration in regards to vision, mission, values, etc. But for the most part, just to kind of present a general theme here, they were all very small suggestions that were being made, right? A lot of what came back was very much in alignment or a subtle deviation from kind of what we presented, which is really a great sign here. Okay.
We actually have some comments that we can look at, or
Yep, I'm going to pull the document up right now, and then we'll start to kind of funnel through some of our some of the feedback that we had, so we can start to kind of put some of these pieces together. I think the one biggest thing, the other theme was there was a couple suggestions in regards to improvements or changes to the vision statement, and I want to make sure that we give that the time that it deserves as well. So we're going to start with the staff side of things here. I think it's important to bring that context in early on.
Emily just emailed out the document as well.
Okay.
Have it for reference.
Okay, can everybody see my screen okay?
Mhm.
Can see it. You might want to zoom in a little bit.
Okay. Is that better? Is that good for everybody? Thumbs up? Awesome. Okay. So this came back from the staff through Emily. Super gracious that this actually happened. You guys took the time to kind of go through this and kind of bring all our thoughts together to be able to kind of just bring that perspective back to the board. As mentioned, right, this wasn't the only kind of suggested improvement or change to the vision side. So we'll go through some of those. But I do want to I'm going to vocalize this and go through it. And then we'll kind of start making our way through some of these suggestions and seeing what we want to take, what we want to leave, right? Other things that need to be challenged, etc. So on the vision side, if we think of where the suggestion needed to be, we see a future where our communities collaborate with us to improve and sustain the quality of our water resources. Okay, that was the original vision statement. The suggested changes are, we see a future where continued collaboration with local communities improves and sustains the quality of water resources. So I'm going to just open the floor here. Like I said, once again, this is coming from staff kind of revisions, but I'd love to hear some feedback on this. I do think it is a pretty impactful kind of change and kind of see where they're coming from.
Mr. President, I can give a little context to this as well. Just that the feedback was that, or the original was more that it was being viewed as an us watershed district versus the community, whereas this makes it more inclusive as a combined approach. So by shifting some of the wording around, taking out some of that wording where it says we see a future where our communities, meaning like it's anyway, that was the general. So was kind of taking it away from what was viewed as a somewhat self-centered perspective back to a more collaborative and same lane, if you will.
I like that it suggests we're on a continuum here, that we're continuing this collaboration. It's not that we're starting a collaboration.
Right, because we've done a lot in the last decade.
Mhm.
Maybe what about thinking about the other way around? We see a future where collaboration with local communities continues to improve and sustain the quality of our water resources. It sounds like the continued collaboration has been behind it all along. And because the continued collaboration is what's doing it, but I know it just. I like it either way, I guess. Like, what's the difference?
Okay.
It sounds like we're just starting to improve. That's what bothers me a little bit. And as Mike said, we've accomplished a lot in the last 10, 15 years. I don't want to misconstrue that we're like almost just starting out.
Okay.
I don't know, the board should react to that too, I think, so. think we're saying that, aren't we saying that the collaboration has been the weak part of the whole thing up to this point, in time, right?
Well, that's
And the
what-
implementation has been, the results have been great. Collaboration hasn't been because we haven't needed to collaborate too much. But now we need to collaborate. Because there's the next step forward, all the stuff we're gonna take on now and.
Yeah.
But at each turn though, every community has collaborated at different levels.
Right.
I mean, we've had, even from the Crystal Lake Township, being able to do work on the Moody Lake and the park, things like that. Scandia, really good support from the community, just overall. Forest Lake allowing us to use Bigview Park, doing some other things. Each one is a little bit different, so the value of having the continued in the first part then says, we acknowledge that we've already collaborated with you, and we want this to continue into the future to improve and sustain the quality of water resource. The other way, moving the continued, I think suggests that we really haven't had collaboration and now we need to start it. So I think there's still maybe a stronger element from the reader's perspective, from that we're sharing it with.
I always try to read it both ways.
Right, well, I don't value
Because
doing both.
some people are gonna read it the other way that you hadn't intended.
Right.
But where the emphasis is, and so I'm just thinking, how does the rest of the board feel? Like I said, I can live with either.
Mhm.
I'm just pointing out that there is a different perspective, you put the emphasis the other way.
Very much so. That's changing. Absolutely.
Chris, Doug, how do you guys feel about that? Are we just messing with words? Are we okay with what's been done? Because I think there is a definite improvement there.
I don't have a preference either.
You're gonna have to adjust your phone like you did last time, because we have a hard time when you first start out, to whatever you're adjusting helps a lot usually.
Can you not hear me?
It's still kind of scratchy.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's great.
Sound
I
like
don't have a
yourself.
I don't have a preference either way.
Good.
Okay.
Go ahead. You were gonna say something.
I think he just mentioned he doesn't have a preference either way.
Okay.
Which is good, right? I mean, it gets us to the point now where, maybe this is just we're just playing with words. If anybody does feel strongly about this, especially the staff, and if they do, and the board isn't, sees value in kind of both presentations, then, I would urge us to probably go with the side for, just kind of staff buy-in, et cetera. But I do understand kind of what this is, right? One is, I don't know, I guess when you think about like the purpose of a vision, right? It's just a statement, right? It's out of context. It's supposed to be able to stand alone. And if it does do that kind of both ways. I think for us, we are starting to put the pieces together and make that assumption of like, is this something we haven't been doing, right? And we're trying to strive towards that particular vision, which is, ensuring that we're collaborating with our communities, right? That's the biggest thing. So kind of it imposes or insinuates this gap. I don't know if the general public would pick up on that, honestly, because if it is just like this is what we're looking for, and this is what we envision as a perfect world that we're striving towards, right? Whether we have a piece of it that's relevant now, or if all of it is relevant now, I think doesn't matter one way or the other. But we see a future where continued collaboration with local communities improves and sustains the quality of water resources. I think it reads well. I don't think it's, like I said, I think that stands alone as well.
I think we got a look for it, so let's leave it the way it is. I think it's a good improvement. Everybody's happy with it.
Okay.
Yanni,
Yeah.
may I offer another thought on this?
Oh, please.
The word where troubles me. How about we see a future of continued collaboration rather than saying we see a future where? Since the focus is on collaboration, we see a future of continued collaboration among our communities to improve and sustain the quality of water resources. I think that reads
Okay.
better than having the word where.
Yeah, but where is an answer? So, well, I don't know that we need an adverb there.
I like it.
I like it too. Good.
See a future of continued collaboration with local communities.
Or just among our communities.
That
What did
sustains.
I mess up here? I must have messed something up.
We lost a word. That sustains.
That, well, I just changed it when you took the word of where.
Communities and sustains. Okay, there we go. That should be right. Okay, we see a future of continued collaboration with local communities and sustains the quality of water resources.
I think we lost that improves.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that reads right.
And
Is it the and?
it's the and, yeah. Maybe replace it with a that.
That improves and sustains.
Yep, that approves and that's approves and sustains, yep. There, I think we're back to close.
The editing format, which is throwing me off here. Okay, I think that's it. We see a future of continued collaboration with local communities that improves and sustains the quality of water resources. Okay, I like that. Is that a yay? Everybody feel pretty good about this?
I'm
Okay.
good.
Great. Okay, on the mission side, our mission is to protect and enhance local ecosystems and natural water resources. So take the word "our" out. Thoughts? I think that's a pretty.
You didn't ask for changes before I sent something into Emily.
Yeah.
With our,
There's a couple mission changes, so I'll bring those forth here. I'm just curious about anyone's feedback on this, whether, we want to kind of remove ownership from those ecosystems and just assume that, just kind of label them as local, or is it more powerful to kind of assume that ownership, right, with our community essentially?
And I think a little bit, President, the thought on this is that it might be construed that the board thinks that all the water resources are theirs, ours, versus then you're granting that somehow we're gonna dictate what to do.
right, I like the word, I like the change.
Okay. This was,
We're focused locally and we're not all over the board here, so within our watershed.
this was another suggestion for a mission change. I've got one more, I believe.
I made that suggestion basically because our major focus has been on water resources, and ecosystems is a broader term, but I think it's a lot of parts of ecosystems that we're not gonna do a lot of work in, like insect control and all that kind of stuff, this habitat, we're gonna
It's
do
an
what we
outcome
can.
of it, right?
It's not a primary focus. Water resources are primary. Ecosystems other than wetlands and that are secondary. So that's the only point I was trying to make. Order of things sometimes should have meaning. You're right, so. But and you had another change you were gonna share with us too, Yanni?
Yep, it's right down here below. Our mission is to protect and enhance our ecosystems by actions that direct an effective, sustainable outcome on natural water resources.
And this one came from Kurt Sparks from the CAC. He submitted a comment early, and then the CAC is also going to meet tomorrow.
Well, has the CAC already seen this or not?
I'm not sure if Kurt's response has been shared with the rest of the CAC. Aiden sent it to me today, and I forwarded it to Yanni.
Okay, good.
I'll read in the chat. Chris Loth said, "I am not in favor of the last suggested edit."
I'm gonna weigh on that side as well. I like the simplicity of the first two.
Behind the first two, I agree that the primary being natural resources and but then changing the hour to local when we combine those two.
Let me just go back to the 10-year plan where we had a lot of discussion. We had to prioritize it. Part of the ecosystems, you know, what do you call the water moving in the ground? Those things are all something we want to do, but we're not going to really drive the plan around that. Run around it. Things we want to pick up as we go along.
And if we took the word local and switched out hour, right? And what was the big like what was the reason of swapping these? If I don't mind asking.
The reason was that if you look at our 10-year plan, natural water resources where we really focused our work on.
Okay.
And then ecosystems is a much broader term. It includes prairies, it includes making sure the butterflies have habitat. And you see a lot of the conservation departments around here spend their time on that because they don't have the staff and the experience to do the water quality work. So we pick that up. Wherever we can pick up that doing a water quality project, we'll spend a little extra money and do it. But we're not going to focus on that. It's not going to drive our mission and everything else. You follow what I'm saying? And so basically, order should make a difference in some cases, and here I think it does.
Okay.
And that's what Mike was saying too here. So
Manager Lowe's is saying the top one, so then it just alphabetically, it's, you know, it reads more simplistically, right? So, but I also understand your point in terms of,
well,
the ecosystem kind of discussion is the area of overlap between conservation offices and watershed districts.
right, and actually, it's probably more correct in saying ecosystems and natural water resources because natural water resources are part of the ecosystem. But as it pertains to us, you know, it's a subcategory of the ecosystem with along 8 or 9 other points that could be put in there. So, but for us, water and natural resources is the thing that we really focused on, and it's still our main focus.
Okay.
But I think we take the word hour out, local one again, would make it
I think
better.
does everybody agree on that? That a better term to use here is local.
Yeah, again, the board should decide whatever they feel comfortable with.
Same with the second one, then if that's still a viable option.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to go around the room in favor of local or in favor of hour? And just see what we can tally up here. I'll go first. Even though it doesn't matter, but I like the word hour.
I like our local.
Okay.
Possessive and constrained.
Chris, how do you feel?
Sorry, are you there?
Yes.
Sorry, my
What-
Bluetooth disconnected, so I haven't heard what was recently discussed. Sorry about that.
You're good. So Chris, we're just going around the room and trying to tally up some favorability towards the word local or the word our in this context. Looks like we have one vote for our, and then somebody suggested our local and combining the two. But yeah, thoughts?
I like the top one with our and local in it.
Okay.
Manager Bach, you need more time to think, or you?
I'm good either way. I'm fine with local or our local. Either way is fine.
Okay.
Oh, boy. The word hour bothers me a little bit, because the same way Mike had that comment about that we own this and you could say we're a little arrogant about it. I don't know. Some people feel that way already, that we have too much authority and power. And so I don't want to encourage that too much in a vision statement, where anybody can latch onto that feeling. I don't want to, overturn the rock and have a bunch of other things crawl out for us. So I would prefer just to keep it at local, but.
Okay.
Can I change my option?
Yeah.
I'm in alignment with President Schmaltz.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be more definitive too. I'll go with just local and get rid of the word our.
Okay. That's it. All right. Like it. All right. Values. Just double check here.
The only change they made, pretty amazing. All that up.
Okay, so outside of just the clear suggestion of removing innovative approach and replacing it with innovation, which we spent a good bit of time on that word last time we were all together. So it's interesting to hear the feedback from the staff. Another suggestion that was made was switching the word data with scientific methods and having scientific methods read first. So I will throw that out there as well. This might pose a can of worms here to go back down the innovation road. And I know how some, people have strong feelings about just the preconceived notions or how general society has been conditioned to receive a word like that. But yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, I feel like if you're going to own that word or incorporate it, right? And as long as it's broad enough to not be specific to something that's like technology oriented, right? Or exclusively how we build particular things. And it is a broad enough stroke to incorporate everything from, the culture of the organization to how we run payroll to how we problem solve, etc. And it's conveyed in through that kind of lens. I think it works and I think it should be owned. But curious. Innovative approach in relation or in comparison to innovation. And this is not an explanation change. This is a value, changing one of the values to that word, which is a big thing.
Did anybody capture or did everybody ask the important question of why do you feel that way? When they say we want to get rid of innovative approach and innovation, ask them the question, well, why do you feel that way? Just to kind of understand what their thought process is.
I can share that.
Yeah.
But
You just thought it was duplicative to have innovative approach and service-oriented approach.
okay, I mean, it's good to know. I try to explain. When I make a change in my own mind, I gotta ask myself, why am I doing this? Because
The only
Can I make a suggestion?
Chris, go ahead. Yes.
does innovative stand on its own instead of innovation, just innovative?
Thank you, Angelo, because, yeah, that, the question that I had was that, are the values meant to be descriptive? Or, because then innovation versus innovative would be different, and that would go with Manager Lowe's suggestion of just innovative. Sounds a little more, sounds better in my view.
Okay. And honestly, it maintains consistency, right, with the other ones, just presenting it that way.
If I can piggyback on that, Yanni, we have as headings, we have collaboration, TION, and if we add after that innovation, TION, and after that, if we add service orientation, we're being more consistent and parallel in our headings.
Okay, exclusion. Like that?
Yeah,
Those are nouns, and I think the verbs are much more powerful. Descriptive adjectives convey action as opposed to something that's a noun is just sitting there by itself. It doesn't do anything until you put an adjective or something ahead of it or behind it. Or verb, yeah, adjective behind it, ahead of it, or verb after it. So I'm more inclined to have the word like innovative. Maybe instead of collaboration, collaborative and community. So more leaning to going with the action part of it, but and maybe we can't do them all that way. I don't know either.
I agree with Manager or our President Schmaltz's comment there too.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily think, I personally don't feel they all have to be in the same, I don't even know what the word is. I don't know if it's tense or
Same grammar format.
participle, but
And Baki, Manager Baki is our English expert, so. Our wordsmithing expert, I should say.
too much pressure.
Okay, well, let's just think about it.
I don't think there needs to be consistency there, right? It's just how it looks and how it reads. If you see something to go, I don't think you need to force anything here, right? To have that alignment by any means. But yeah.
So you wanna go around and vote on that innovation or innovative then?
Yeah, do it.
I'll go first this time. I like innovative for the action, but
Okay.
I agree.
I think you should get a vote. Couple votes.
I think innovation just flows in that sequence nicely.
Innovation. Where's our tiebreaker?
You know why we need Manager Anderson here? Somebody sends her an email, say, pick between these two words.
Can I make a comment?
We're gonna go with the CAC tomorrow, and let's see what happens there. We've got a whole different audience with a little less in-office experience and more external experience, so
Yeah,
Can I make a comment real quick?
please.
go ahead. Well,
I think collaboration and oriented approach works better because there's other words supporting it versus just the noun by itself.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. A noun kind of stands alone unless you have an adjective before it or a verb after it. So
Yeah,
Is there another word other than approach that we can utilize?
Just service oriented is fine. I think the approach, I think, is superfluous to that phrase.
Yeah. And honestly, it's redundant if we maintained approach on the top side. But if we kept innovative and paired it with another word, right? Just to bring either some more context to it. And I mean, every other one has, you know, 2 words plus that are just kind of explaining what that value is. I don't know.
The CAC member had suggested scientific methods. We could say innovative methods or innovative method.
Okay.
I know I left early last time, but when you start talking about methods, that gets very project. It rings more true to being projects. And I would go back to your comment about the tax, using tax rebates to influence shoreline behavior. Method is very, it aligns with like scientific experiments to me, and less applicable to some of the other areas where I think we do innovative things.
Sure, I would agree with that. Yes.
What about the word framework or the word perspective?
You might put the word attitude in there.
Attitude or innovative mindset? I don't know.
Make it start down, find out a bunch of other words.
I like mindset.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good word. I like that too. It's better than attitude.
Did someone say perspective?
Yeah, I just put that up
Okay.
there. Perspective. Innovative perspective, innovative mindset. I like both of those. If there was another term. I like what attitude conveys. I just don't like the word attitude. Thoughts? I like mindset the best. That's my favorite.
So are we including innovative in the heading?
Yes.
Okay.
No, that's a little. I don't know if I can mess with this. It's not going to let me. So innovative mindset or innovative approach or innovative framework, perspective, attitude, etc. If there's any other words and anybody feels strongly about or has ideas, we can also throw them up there too. Strategy. That might be too granular.
Conveys a kind of a continuum. Kind of mindset's always there. And
Yeah.
also innovative mindset means to me, you're looking for ways to improve or do things differently. And a mindset, you want to have a mindset, you always want to be looking for that, you know, because you might wake up in the middle of the night and have that brilliant idea. And that's an innovative mindset. You just don't think of maybe from 8 to 4 or 8 to 5 or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty well supported by the sentence we have below it. Encourage forward-thinking ideas that challenge boundaries in pursuit of our goals.
We're saying the same thing in a number of different ways, which is good.
Yeah, yeah, which is,
You're
you know,
trying to reinforce it with staff and everyone else and your constituents.
okay. So do you want to go around the room? Is there favorites? Does everybody like mindset? Do we just keep innovation?
My vote's innovative mindset.
I'd agree with that. I'd go with mindset.
I concur.
My innovative mindset, both words, right? I like both words, innovative mindset.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Then there was a suggestion down here, ground actions in scientific methods, data, and measurable metrics to ensure informed, effective, and sustainable outcomes.
I made that suggestion mainly because of the order concept again. Scientific method is the broad term we use, and actually scientific method comes first, then that generates the data, and then from there you get to the metrics. So it's kind of just a logic issue in my mind.
Okay.
So that's why I added.
Yeah. I would assume most probably wouldn't feel strongly one way or the other. And if there's purpose behind it, then
Yeah, it's not somebody asked about this, we should be able to defend what we did, right? I mean, if we
Yeah.
just sit there and look at each other. After hearing everybody speak, we kind of understand how we're thinking now, and I think we could all talk about each one of these pretty strongly.
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
The other suggestion I made, I don't know whether Emily sent that over to you, it was the order in which we provide the values. Again, this comes back to this logic of order, right? Is there a rationale for why do we do what we did? So I went through and I said, okay, I can argue for a different order here if I wanted to.
President Schmaltz,
Yes,
before we go into the order, can I make a quick comment on that last one?
absolutely. I thought we were finished, but go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, like I said, I apologize because it's probably because I had to cut out early last time, but when I first read it, it took me a quick minute to figure out what ground actions were. And I'm wondering if just replacing ground actions into anchored, ANCHORED, so anchored in scientific methods. If that just sounds better and communicates the same thing.
Actually, I think it sounds stronger to me. Again, it's kind of like, it's there all the time. What do you think, Mike?
I love nautical terms, so yes.
The master sergeant likes it. Any other comments on Chris's suggestion?
Yeah. I mean, are there any of these that we feel strongly about or need to incorporate? Like, I mean, I'm happy to change the order here.
Yanni, if I could take us back to service-oriented approach. I'm not sure that's the right heading that we want there. What if we switched to community-focused service as the heading, and then take service-oriented approach and put that at the end of the statement under that?
And you said community-focused.
Service, which is at the end of the sentence below.
Okay, and then
So we're just switching,
got it.
because we're now focused on the community, and we're prioritizing a respectful, responsive, and a service-oriented approach in serving our community.
Okay. Thoughts? In favor?
Can I get someone to read the before and after for me?
Yeah, so the before was the value itself. The header was service-oriented approach. And we have replaced that with a part of the description, which is now community-focused service. So the value reads, community-focused service, prioritize respectful, responsive, and service-oriented approach. It used to read service-oriented approach, prioritize respectful, responsive, and community-focused service.
I like it. It just feels like the word service is overused.
What if we just changed it to community focused?
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I
As
like
you
that.
started talking.
Yeah.
Yep, I like that.
Okay.
How does that differ from number 2?
Doesn't. You're right. You're right.
But the other one did.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking of is when we had some issues back with some COVID. With, cutting our service hours down, not answering the phones, et cetera, et cetera. Stuck out at me that we need to be service oriented. We're a service oriented organization. And when somebody calls, we need to be there when they call. So forth. So, I mean, that's what we're here for. Especially since we're an LGU too. That's how I see the difference between number 2 and number 4, or whatever it is.
I don't think this, I mean, yes, the explanation brings context to it, right? But with the community engagement above, I think it kind of, it just, again, it's just bringing a different meaning to almost the same value, in my opinion. Even if it was just service oriented instead of service oriented approach in regards to the value itself. And maybe we need a different explanation here.
I do see them as different, though. I think the collaboration is that we're engaging with our community, sitting at the same table, having an equal place. Whereas the community focused is more about providing a service to the community. We realize that we are servants to the community. So I do see them as different.
Okay.
But again, it is focusing on our need to serve the community as a whole, not only through collaboration, but keeping the community as a part of our service as well. Two different ways.
And I think we have to weigh heavily on the heading of each of these categories. We may just use the headings alone in some cases, not the whole explanation. And so with community focused, we've lost the concept of service. While with servant oriented, then it comes out stronger, and I think service oriented. So
I agree with that statement.
we put it now into the second line, and I'm even thinking, I was just telling Mike here, I saw a land trust that had their logo, and then they had four key values right next to their logo with their tagline underneath. And that to me hit me very hard because it said they were transparent, they were, I can't remember what they all are, but those 4 words hit me very hard by looking at the logo, and they tied in with the logo immediately. And I almost built confidence in that logo then by hearing those words next to it. So.
And I mean, the community focus, right? Like, yes, we can bring context to it based on our experience, being a part of the organization, right? But if you remove, I mean, I do agree that the service piece of it, if you think about it from just an everyday individual that sees that, it's going to feel repetitive. Simply because of the word community, right? And whether it's engagement, whether it's service, you need the context in order for this to make sense. Maybe we don't, but it needs to be here. And I guess do we want that? Like, should these stand alone without the explanation? The explanation or the context is us taking it just one step further here.
If it's important they stand alone, then I think we go back to what it was.
Because if we go back to the number one, the community focus is actually in the tag, is in the second line. I think where it belongs, it's under the service oriented and it's related to the being community focused. And we don't have to replace the word focus. We could just have it prioritized, respectful, responsive, and community focused. And just because the word service is already up in the front line, so we don't need that second word of service. Which somebody commented it's too much, and I agree. Just drop the word service on the second line. I don't think we need the word service. And that makes it pretty much stronger, I think.
Do we need the word approach?
I don't think we do either. But
There's something wrong there with it. It's missing something, but
Prioritize, respectful, responsive, and yeah, I don't think this makes sense.
Anymore. Because before it was you were prioritizing, you were going to prioritize being respectful, responsive, and service oriented. But now you're, or
Oh, I understand. Okay. You need that word service.
Make a suggestion.
Yeah.
What if you put approach at the end of that sentence? Prioritize a respectful, responsive, and community-focused approach.
There we go. I like that. But, okay, yeah.
yeah, that's
So service oriented, prioritize respectful, responsive, and community focused approach.
Is the word prioritize what we want to use there?
I don't know, like it still feels, I know that's, I
What
know,
about emphasize respectful, responsive, and community focused service? Or deliver? Prioritize seems to me we're leaving something out to put those in there. So by doing that, we're giving something up. Changing the importance. Of course, that's
I
what,
like the. Sorry. I like the word change. I'm not sure deliver is the right one. I don't know if you deliver an approach.
yeah, you're right. Prioritize, I guess, is what you want to do. You want to prioritize the service, but you don't get prioritize doesn't have service until the end of the line. That's the only thing. But
I don't know if prioritize is the right word either. Can we just get rid of it and just go respectful, responsive, and community-focused approach?
Each
Yeah,
one of the
that-
second, each one of the secondary clauses there starts with a verb.
Emphasize.
There, that would work.
I like it.
I like it too.
One other suggestion, what if we changed it to emphasize a community-focused approach that is respectful and responsive?
Okay. Emphasize a community-focused approach that is respectful and responsive. I think that's more powerful. Honestly, it read, yeah, I don't know, it didn't read right. But again, thoughts on that? I guess the first, drop this in here. Okay, there's the two next to each other. I really think you need the A here. Otherwise, I don't know, this just doesn't feel, I know it's correct, but it doesn't read well. Thoughts one way or the other?
If we go with the second one, can we just start with respectful? Just to shorten it up.
Then we're losing the verb again then.
Yeah, I think that verb concept is important in all the points because it conveys commitment and determination and action.
I kind of like the first one.
It also
Emphasize the community. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we don't have to use emphasize either. You can say concentrate on, highlight,
Practice.
practice, provide, achieve, supply.
Articulate.
Commit,
What was that?
commit to,
Commit. Okay, I like that. Commit to a community-focused approach that is respectful and responsive. All right, do we want to go around the room?
Something with commitment and community separated by 2A doesn't flow off the tongue very well.
Okay.
They engaged in.
Engaged in. Okay. How about fulfill? What do we just get? Oh, I guess we kind of need it. No, we don't. What if we got rid of it and started with community?
If we're going to do that, then I would just start with respectful down below.
Yeah.
Then we lose our verb again.
I don't think they, in my opinion, the word isn't as important as how it is cohesive with the description of the value.
I mean, we do start most of them in that fashion.
Community focus approach.
Or could we just go with respect, respond, and change the last one?
They respect, respond in a community-focused approach.
Something like that. How about deliver a community-focused approach?
Yeah, that's more powerful than emphasize. Emphasize says you're gonna try to do it. You're gonna put emphasis on it, but may or may not happen.
Yeah.
Deliver takes you closer to the goal. Want to go around the room? Johnny?
Yeah, just gonna say. If we don't like the word. Okay. That's another option. Focused on a respectful, responsive, and community-focused approach. And then the first one was deliver a community-focused approach that is respectful and responsive.
The phrase to say deliver community focus, that to me really brings up the whole idea of our permitting processes. We're going to deliver a service that's respectful and responsive. That's what kind of rolls in my head when I hear that word deliver in relation to service oriented.
Hey, Yanni,
Go ahead, Chris.
can you come up with a synonym to focus that, because the focus approach is at the end, but I don't dislike change there.
I see. Okay.
Just looking for a synonym to focus or emphasize.
Dedicated, driven, purposeful, determined,
I like
Deliver,
dedicated.
dedicated to a respectful, responsive, and community-based.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's as strong as the word deliver.
Yeah.
I just want two that can stand on their own. And then we
Both
can
are words, and I think that's what we want, but I mean, to me, deliver is a lot closer to owning it than dedicated, but. So why don't we vote on those two if everybody's up there?
Yeah, let's, we'll go around here.
I have one quick question.
Chris,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Could we, I forgot, we've made so many changes, I'm trying to remember where we were at, but could you say deliver a respectful, responsive, and community focused approach? What was the motivation for moving those around?
Well, that's what we had before, except we had the word prioritize instead of deliver.
So what if we went back to what we started with and just changed deliver instead of prioritize? Is that essentially the second line then?
Yeah, I mean, all you're doing is taking the first word and switching the verb prioritize to deliver. Which I think again is stronger than prioritize, but.
Yeah, so if we took the word instead of dedicated to, it would just be deliver a respectful, responsive, and community-focused approach.
Service, yeah, and that reads pretty smoothly too.
I agree, and I'm trying to remember what the reason to bring the community focused approach to the beginning.
Because we started out with making service-oriented community approach, remember? And that conflicted a little bit with number 2. So we kind of gone all the way around the circle, come back where we are. Which is a good sign, right?
Right, and my only final comment on it would be is, for the board to reflect on is that the first one is, you're just saying that you're delivering a service based on that of thinking about the community, even if it's not as an individual, because sometimes an individual may not necessarily agree with you, but you're delivering that on a community basis. So whereas the other one, you're delivering a respectful, a community-focused approach, but you're really then talking about, maybe more of, it just feels a little bit more like that even on a, that it's a little bit reversed then, that the community is is the latter part of the reflection or the action. That makes sense. I'd be fine with either of them.
I think can I ask a question with where you're going with that?
Mhm.
I don't disagree the importance of community, but oftentimes we are interacting with individuals.
Correct.
So is that what are you saying, because community is at the end, that you lose the importance of that, or the emphasis of?
From the perspective that not everyone agrees, including sometimes our partners, that they may have their focus may be on the rules have a negative economic input effect on a developer, versus the community is first, and which includes the resource. So to me, it says more. It is emphasizing more of the community out the gate, I guess. So it's a little bit of a nuanced piece, but I would be very much fine with either.
I'll start the voting. I vote for the second one.
Okay, that's one on number 2. Who's next?
I'll vote for number 2 also.
2 for 2.
I like number 1 because it brings that community focus forward.
I agree with Mike in that the community-focused approach should be at the beginning of the statement, because that's the main idea. The respectful and responsive are descriptors of that approach. Where's our tiebreaker? Once again.
Or the CAC, one of the two.
Well, let's just go with number 1 then for the time being.
Yeah.
Keep the numbers in the record somewhere in case we come back to this.
Does Yanni have
A vote?
not a vote, but perspective from his an outside perspective?
Yeah.
He kind of broke the tie last time by just changing the word.
But you know, when you're service oriented in a day-to-day basis, it's usually to the individual. So.
Yeah, I mean, part of me is,
And the individual, I like to hear the word individual in there somewhere, but we never even brought that up. But I think about it, you know, you got the contractor that's really mad, who's coming in.
And I guess the way I understand this statement to read is that, yes, individuals may come to us, but they have to understand we have to serve the community at large.
Right.
But that's sometimes done working with an individual or a group.
In a way that is respectful and responsive. I mean, either work, I mean, from that perspective.
I mean, if these two words, right, are meant to describe community focused approach, right, and this is fundamentally like the top point that needs to be made, then I would say the first one. But I don't know if that's really the case. Like, I feel like if you want to be more inclusive, or is that what you're trying to convey in regards to the service oriented aspect of this? Like, I know there was and I may have kind of interpreted this incorrectly, but I guess there was an instance of something, right, where there wasn't, whether, you know, people weren't answering phones, or there was no way to get a hold of people, and we pride ourselves on I don't know, just how accessible we are. I feel like The second one would be more inclusive of kind of everything here. And the service-oriented aspect does what you're trying to do. I mean, I think we're kind of splitting hairs here.
I guess the question is, are we trying to focus on community, or are we trying to further define what service oriented means? You know,
I think
before we had the word service at the end of the first one we had coming into the meeting, we had prioritized respectful, responsive, and community-focused service. And we changed that to deliver a respectful, responsive, and community-focused service. We're trying to just further enlighten the public on what service-oriented means. Or the other approach is to do more on the community-focused part of it, and just let the word service-oriented stand on its own.
The second one does incorporate both the individual and the community.
And that's kind of how
Have the community engagement on the second value as well.
And isn't that the purpose of the service-oriented part, right?
it's serving anyone, an individual, community,
Yeah.
our engineer.
Respectful response.
So we're gonna go with number 2 then? At least for this round?
Okay.
I'm just asking the questions.
I mean, does anybody feel super strongly one way or the other where it's would raise conflict in the future?
Not I'm just not clear on what this value is. It's kind of getting mushy for me. I'm just not clear what we're saying in this one. If going back to what Steve was saying, under collaboration and community engagement, do these descriptors need to go under that heading? I mean, what is it we're trying to say here? Are we engaging the community through our service and being respectful and responsive, or are we trying to serve our entire community? I mean, I'm losing the value here somehow,
I mean,
but I'm okay with it.
I mean, I do kind of agree with that.
Is it about answering the phones? I mean, if that's as easy, I mean, if it's as easy as that, then we need to be just clear about, we need to be available to the public, or we need to, something like that.
Yeah.
But if we're going to be talking more about serving the entire community, then, that's a different value. So I'm just not clear where we are with this one.
Yeah,
To me,
Emily's responded back to this as well.
What does Emily say?
And where we started was to prioritize respectful response to the community.
I think it was good the way it started. I think the overall document would come across professional if all of the bold headers were nouns, and then all of the descriptors underneath them started with a present tense verb. And I thought that first one was very straightforward, and it fit those that kind of format.
Okay.
I think I cut off maybe a little.
Go ahead, Manager Lewis, you were gonna say something?
It was just more of just speaking on Manager Bobby's question, and to me, the value is just serving anyone is what I took as the value here.
Because we have a lot of individual contractors that come in all the time, you know, this is not, groups that come and see us, but. And we have a lot of, I mean, some of our biggest issues have come because contractors feel they weren't serviced. Either because they were misdirected by the city, and we got the blame for it, or, you know, they're trying to get the smoothness between us and the city's permits. They all flowed together in one process was a big step forward. So it's an important concept, I think. We've made a lot of progress since many years ago, but I mean, at one time it was a big issue for us. So again, back to that individual thing, is that this is pretty important.
So here's a couple more. I just kind of threw up here. I don't know if I should even throw these in the mix, but I'm going to. Just some different, I think, again, I think we either stick with what we had. I think we're kind of getting away from the essence of service oriented and what we're trying to convey there. And I think if we are really truly trying to focus on the community aspect of it, we have other values that do that and do that pretty well. But the first one we had was prioritize respectful, responsive, and community-focused service. And the value was service-oriented approach, which I think works. If we wanted to remove the word approach, here's two other options. Offer a community-focused approach grounded in respect, responsiveness, and care. Foster respectful and responsive interactions, prioritizing service to our community.
I appreciate Emily's comment because I think that's her point, and I would agree with that, is going back to the original statement, which is service-oriented approach, prioritize respectful, responsive, and community-focused service. So that's really clear to me of what that value is. It's more about serving each and every individual as they come to our door or call on the phone or whatever. It's that simple.
And it's simple to read. It's a simple concept. I mean, it's not, we don't have a lot of extra words in there that the mind's gotta deal with. And commas and all that kind of stuff, so. Why don't we go with the original one and see what happens tomorrow night with the CAC? If it stirs any comments from them.
Emily, you're going to have to kind of restructure this. I've just really destroyed it. So, okay.
No
great.
problem.
Wonderful. All right. Gonna leave it there before I mess up again. Okay. All right. Okay, so it sounds like we're within everybody on this call or in this room is good. Now, my question is, what are necessary steps to either validate or ensure that this is something that we feel comfortable going public with and we can start to incorporate into the rest of what kind of needs to be done here? Like, is there you know, you keep mentioning this thing tomorrow. Obviously, we're going to present it there. I don't know what type of feedback we're going to get. But again, this is for us. I just kind of mentioned that is, you know, if there's people that are kind of a part of this group that we value their opinion and we need it, it's important. With that being said, like, you are the organization. You know, we don't need a ton of different feedback where we're just going to keep coming back to this and keep making changes because of just subtle suggestions. So
Well,
I guess the question is, what needs to happen next, right, to be able to feel good about this and make this something official?
Can I ask one question?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Chris.
Did my anchored in get nixed? Was someone not in favor of that adjustment?
No, I like that change.
We didn't come back to it. That's,
Can you just kind of refresh that for me real quick, and I'll get it done? I missed that.
It was just the last, the way the last starts. Ground actions in scientific methods didn't sound very good to me, and I thought anchored in scientific methods would have been a better way to start that.
Okay, done. Sorry about that.
Thank-
That's on me.
No problem.
Might have to correct some tenses there.
Yeah,
Just anchor in would be fine.
Anchor in.
Hmm.
Okay.
So what about Dr. Yanni's question of, do we want any other feedback from any other group or constituent? Or do we need other input? No one's speaking up, so the thought that tomorrow night we have the CAC, before we have the staff, and they've lived inside the organization, you know, the whole time here, right? And I don't know, they spend a lot of time stepping out of the organization and putting themselves into the constituents' footwear. But this CAC group is basically a sample from all the lake associations, plus some other independent people that have been actively involved in this whole thing from a long time. So I think what they're gonna bring to us is a view from outside the organization, looking back at what they see day in and day out and dealing with us. And then relating that back to what we've got on the sheet of paper. Does that make sense, Johnny?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I mean, and obviously you very much value their opinions, right, and would take them with high regard.
Right, at one time I thought it'd be good to go to the lake associations directly, but I think in many respects, this is kind of a sample of that. And depending on what kind of feedback we get, if we feel it's good, I think we would take it. If it's bad, then maybe we want to go and do a little bit more. I don't know, but we'll see. I
All
mean,
right.
we got Boone Lake represented, we got Comfort Lake represented, and we've got Forest Lake Association, right, Mike? And those are all leaders from those groups, past presidents. So they've been involved with this water quality thing and the lake association that dealing with their own constituents, you know, more so than we have, because they're right close to them.
Okay. Emily, you have your hand raised. You got something to add?
Yeah, well, and Steve and other board members, do you think it would be fair to present this to the CAC in a way that when we say, you know, as far as like tweaking the words and things, we've spent a lot of time on the wordsmithing and it's very thoughtfully worded. We are open to additional wordsmithing if you feel that something is really rubbing you the wrong way or conveying the wrong message. But the main thing we are really looking for at this point is, do you agree with the intent behind the vision, mission, and values? Are we generally aligned on what the message is, even if we might not all say it in exactly the same way?
Yeah, I like that. I think you have to put some
Yep.
guardrails on it. You really
Yep.
do.
Yeah. Because we can wordsmith this forever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I interrupted someone. Who was speaking?
I was just gonna say, I think it's important to have some guardrails going into that. I guess the fundamental question is, if they come and say, I don't like any of this, are you gonna go back to the drawing board and redo all of it? Right? And
Mhm.
like, do you value their opinion at that level? And if the answer to that is probably not, we might make some subtle changes, then just control how it's presented, right? Be intentional. And of course, you don't want to, force any bias or influence anything in any way. But to Emily's point, like, if you zoom out and force them to zoom out and ask for validation, not for detailed, granular suggestions in regards to the words and things like that. And if you wanted to set them up with something that was just an open-ended question of, like, if there's something in here that really does rub you the wrong way, or you feel very strongly about, we do encourage you to speak up, but only at that particular level. And the hope here is that we get some solid feedback, we get a ton of validation, which just breeds even more confidence into this, and we can move forward. And if there is something that somebody has some strong feelings about, we can obviously take that into consideration. But we don't want to, I don't know, we don't want to ruffle too many feathers, and we don't want to give them too big of a sandbox to play in. Like, this is yours, and you're looking for them to validate for you.
So validation of what? Where and how? That's kind of what the three statements stand for. And then also, we want to look at clarity, right? Their understanding. If there's a confusion about, it's clear to us, right? But we're close to it. If they didn't have some trouble with understanding what we're trying to communicate, I
Yeah,
think that would be a concern, right, Yanni?
I agree with that. Yeah, it's just
Okay.
clarity, right? Is it well received? Do people truly understand and align with what we're trying to convey, and so, especially in some of those values?
And does it fit really in what we're trying to address issue-wise with the water area?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we set that up for the meeting, and so we stay on track then.
Okay. I like that. Okay. All right. We have about a half hour here. I don't want to force and start something that we're not going to be able to finish. I will just kind of set some expectations in regards to, like, next steps and things like that. The biggest thing is, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Hopefully it's a ton of validation and just encourages some motivation and confidence in what we have here, and that we are speaking the same language with with everybody. I think that's the biggest thing. But when we do have these dialed in, it really is starting to kind of unpack the initiatives, right? Are there metrics that are involved with doing this for the next 12 months, the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And you have this wonderful document that usually I don't have the value of stepping into a relationship like this, where they have something that's been so detailed out on such a long kind of timeline. But we want to ensure that, we're prioritizing and we have clarity on what those prioritizations are based on initiatives and incentives and things like that. But also that we are able to kind of restructure aspects of it. I'm not saying change the 10-year plan, right? Unless we feel strongly about something. I'm more so saying extract things from the 10-year plan and present them internally in a format that the staff can really get buy-in and understand what step 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. is for some of these initiatives, and really prioritize them. And that's it. And I guess I am curious about this. If we go through that, or when we go through that, right, and we start to see maybe something in the 10-year plan that doesn't necessarily align with what we've just spent the last couple meetings on here, is there the ability to amend or change, or is it pretty much set in stone in the format that it is? Like, what type of optionality do we have as a group on the back end with that plan? And I'm just trying to cover my basis. I'm not saying we're going to do that, nor am I forcing that by any means. I'm just curious of what that back end looks like.
If you wanna talk to that, if we have to amend the plan, we can operate around that, we allow them to operate in that. plan.
Yes, and then, I mean, it's not unusual to do a plan amendment somewhere, mid-term, and already more than 3 years, and stuff like that.
Okay,
This would not be unusual to make any tweaks, and it would be probably a minor plan amendment.
yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure we have the tools there if necessary. Not saying we're going to use it. But that sounds good. All right. Any questions, any feedback, any takeaways in regards to what we've done and kind of where we're going here?
I guess, just to make sure we're aligned on this whole thing, we've got the 10-year plan and there's. So should we try to extract out of that what we think our key focuses are then?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the staff has spent a good bit of time on doing that as well. So, and I have some great documentation of some meetings that they've had to really start to try to put the pieces to the puzzle together and turn it into something actionable for themselves. So we'll definitely utilize that. But yeah, like I'm not here to change. I'm here to just organize, right? Organize and bring clean and concise action to things. So we're all on the same page. Everyone's bought into it and everybody understands what, step 1, step 2, and step 3 is as we continue to progress here. And the goal here is, this is a standalone kind of document or exercise that we're going through, but it's also implementing a process that might be beneficial or hopefully would be beneficial down the road when you write the next 10-year plan and start to take some of this stuff into mind to be able to ensure that that everyone's set up for success, right? And we're able to kind of hit those goals as quickly and as swiftly as possible. But to answer your question, yeah, start to think about some of that. The things that to you as an individual or even just, higher level to the organization that you feel are a priority within that plan.
So I think we can do this, managers, by either just off the top of your head from what you've been able to hear for the years you've been here, sit down and maybe write it on a sheet of paper.
Okay.
Or you can go back to the 10-year plan and look at the index and go through certain sections, and usually there's a summary at the beginning of each section.
Yeah.
Just kind of see if any of those ring bells to you or stimulate something you hadn't thought about before.
Sure. Okay. And again, this is just excuse my ignorance here, but when we start to think about just a business plan, right, or an actionable plan of some kind, and we see it often, and I'm gonna just kind of explain it through a lens that I know, and hopefully that you guys will kind of understand this a little bit as well. But typically people go really deep, right, and there's a ton of detail, and those plans are really formulated for a government entity or a bank or whatever, right? And they're there to serve a very specific purpose. And what's missing is kind of that action. And typically those actions, those initiatives, right? We try to support them with metrics, with data to ensure that there is progress. And I would imagine just based on going through and conveying these values that we've done, you all value that. And that's a huge part of what the organization does is using data to make good data-based decisions. But I am curious, is that really in the weeds with some of that stuff? Or are there metrics and, kind of data that we are tracking or pay attention to that are a bit more of a higher level that still help us convey whether or not we're on track, off track, right, moving in the right direction, etc. And if they do exist, you don't need to say them now, but start to think about some of those things because every initiative should be supported with some data or performance indicator, right? Something to ensure that there's an objective view on that particular thing to ensure that we know that we're tracking completion, right? In the kind of the speed and the precision that we expect, and also give us the ability to strategize and pivot, right, based on that data and where things are going. Okay, Emily, I think you had your hand raised or had something to kind of chime in here. I may have answered it, but I am curious.
I think you started to touch on it, and I just wanted to, yeah, take this moment to talk about process and like where we are at right now versus what was kind of in the scope of work and what Colin had been presenting
Sure.
for us earlier in the year. And, we've done some good work here on the visioning sort of thing. I know the scope said that that would be the first month. We've taken a little bit longer than that, but I think we've gotten some good alignment from it. And so I just want to make sure we have enough runway here to get into the priorities from our 10-year plan. I think that's a great homework assignment next. And that's really what the staff feedback had focused on, of priorities from the 10-year plan. But then Cultivate Advisors had also brought forward a framework for us, that sort of propeller and these skills and things. And you have this whole spreadsheet workbook that we would be working in, and just kind of maybe thinking about where that fits in the remaining runway of this project.
Absolutely. I mean, typically, and I can pull that document up of kind of how we approach this, just to kind of bring some context to this. Let's see.
I think Colin was calling it a roadmap.
Yeah, it's our kind of our CEO dashboard / roadmap, right? There's a couple different terminologies that we use for it. And I have a template that I've been kind of just dropping some stuff into as we've been going through this. Candidly, when we do that, we start with our vision. And the vision can be exactly what we've gone through. It can also be a bit more smaller scale, like what is your vision for the year? Right? And it really depends on the organization. You're working in 10-year stints of time, right? It's important to have these North Stars to start to validate and answer some of the questions and kind of put the puzzle pieces together as we work our way through this. 1 second, I have it right. Okay. So we talk about simplification. You've heard me use that a lot, right? It's like, how do we simplify? How do we make it actionable? How do we turn it into something that we truly comprehend, and that, regardless of where you are on the organizational chart in this particular organization, right, you can easily connect the dots, right, for action purposes. But we start here. It's the vision. What is the vision of the organization? And using that and maintaining some clarity, right, as we kind of go through this. Step 2 is going to be dropping the pieces into the next couple years. And again, we can do this for the next 5 years. We can do this for the next 2 years, whatever we feel is relevant based on the time periods that we're operating in. These are the initiatives, right? These are the milestones. These are the things that we are trying to achieve and be able to say that we have completed or that we have started, depending on what that looks like. So this will be the next step. And then when I started to kind of poke around and talk about data, right? Usually you support a milestone or an initiative with something that's objective. And if you guys are, following the scientific method and you value data to make good database decisions, you're gonna see some alignment here. But if it's, if just to give you an example, if the revenue of a particular organization is to do $5 million over the course of a calendar year, well, an important metric to give us monthly detail and foresight on what's happening and where we're going would be to track revenue, right, on a monthly basis. So they're directly aligned. And one almost becomes a leading indicator that gives us periodic times throughout the year to pivot, to strategize, to accelerate, to decelerate, etc., based on those metrics. So I'm hopeful that we can figure out the supporting metrics or KPIs for a lot of the plans and initiatives that we have, but it's not always as easy as, kind of that kind of, it's not always as easy as revenue, if that makes sense. But those indicators can be anything, and it forces us to kind of get creative and ensure that we can bring that level of objectivity to some of that. And then once we have those two, we really start to kind of define the buckets that we need to drop them in and then either break them out year over year. But this is typically where I get even more granular, right? So now we're operating annually. We're supporting those annual initiatives or milestones with metrics that are being tracked monthly to ensure we're progressing towards said top line goal. And then we start to bring action into it. Okay, what needs to happen in the first quarter of a year or the first 3-month kind of period to ensure that said milestone is reached? Is there education that needs to be involved? Is there a transfer of knowledge? Is there research? Is there building? Is there implementing? All of that. We start to kind of convey that into here. So we'll definitely, we all have to come to terms, and I want you all to think about this. And again, it's different for every organization, right? The larger you get, the longer those timelines become, because it's a lot more difficult to move a freight liner, right, than it is to move a nice little agile kind of boat. So it's kind of the same methodology, but that's really it. Any questions about any of this? And I'm 99% sure that this is what Colin has showed you guys, the same format, right, and some examples of it. Okay, great.
Thanks, Yanni. I just wanted to kind of pull back to that is,
Yep.
you know, what's ahead of us? What should we expect out of the coming meetings and stuff now that we're kind of nearing the end of the wording of the vision, mission, values?
100%. And you know, to bring it back to the 10-year plan, like that's, I don't know, it's gold for me, right? You have already taken so much time and energy to document, right, and convey that into something that's deliverable. Now we're just going to just compound on top of it, right, or extract from it. So we don't have to, or we don't have to go back to the drawing board here when it comes to a lot of that stuff. We just need to understand where they fit into kind of the bigger picture here, which is great, which should help accelerate the next couple steps. That's why I say that. Okay, wonderful. All right, I will send. So homework for the next couple weeks, okay, and I'll send this and convey this into an email that we'll get over to you, is going to be focused on those milestones, right? The things that we're shooting to achieve and kind of the prioritizations within that 10-year plan and what's left of it. And making sure that everyone can kind of put theirs into their own little, you know, whether it's the back of a napkin or an email or whatnot, but can speak, right, intelligently about what those things are and why they're priorities. And we'll start to figure out those themes and then start to kind of put those things in. I will get over that email, right? But I will immediately send you, Emily, kind of the updated version of the mission, vision, values, right? That we kind of chopped up a little bit tonight. So we can format that appropriately for tomorrow's meeting. It sounds like we have some agenda talking points to make sure that we have some guardrails on that feedback session. Or that opportunity for feedback, and making sure that, you know, there is a little bit of a leash on it. We don't let it go too far to kind of, you know, I don't know, just set us back a little bit more than it needs to, if it gets to that point. And I'm super hopeful that it won't. So, but that's really it. Okay. Any questions?
Any comments or questions from anybody? Are we lined up to know what we want to try to do next time? Be wonderful if that manager Anderson should, I'll give her a call, see if she can't purchase this part of that.
Okay. And if anybody has any concerns about Manager Anderson's feedback and ensuring that it is incorporated into this process, let's see if we can, you know, over the next couple of weeks, make sure that we get that, right? So if we do end up moving forward next time we meet, because everybody feels good about it, that we've really thought through everything and given everybody the voice that they need. Okay. All right.
Okay. Any other questions, Mike, or you wanna?
I guess we're gonna get the feedback tomorrow. Then in terms of the plan, just making sure that we're coordinating staff-wise with Emily, you and Yanni to get out the some of the framework for what we want to be wise to be working on. That's a goal.
Mike, you broke up a little bit there, but, you know, you're suggesting that we send out a framework for managers to fill out in order to provide feedback regarding the priorities in the 10-year plan?
I'm just making sure that I was understanding the next steps.
Yep. Yeah, so it'll be pretty open-ended. You know, I don't think there's a need to go through the entire 10-year plan and then give everybody the ability to prioritize those things. I mean, I guess we could get to that point, but for the sake of time to be able to move quickly, I'm sure all of you have initiatives, right, or milestones that are kind of sitting in the back of your mind in regards to priorities within that 10-year plan in the next couple of years. And that's really what we're looking to extract here. So I'll prompt that with an email, so we can start to kind of funnel that into something that is centrally located. Again, figure out some themes, right, the low-hanging fruit, and then start to really piece together some of the more complex ones.
Okay, I think Thursday night's board meeting will help with some of it. We're gonna have presentation on the modeling and flood resiliency work.
Yeah, well, the flood resiliency, again, I go back to what, Emily, you should send out to everybody again, what we put together, you know, my statement after we had the flood, green space, Greenway corridor, thank you. To help set the priorities there, so everybody can take a look at that. That's kind of what our priorities are right now, but I'm just gonna simplify this a little bit for everybody, since the managers have been here for you, Yanni. If you look at our business, we've got a bunch of boilerplate stuff that we do every year.
Okay.
The programs, basically programs, permitting, AIS, all these guys. We've got extensive metrics on those, and Emily, you should send him a copy of your metrics book. So all that is boilerplate. That's pretty much the same every year. We've got to perform at a certain level, you know what I'm saying? And then on the other side, we've got things that are stretch goals, things that are new that we don't do every day the same way, right? It's all new. Finding a building to move into. You know, now we got a problem with restoring the trees on Forest Lake, you know, but it's a whole new thing again. And floodplain is another one. Floodplain is going to take a lot longer than we think. So those are the programs that are going to have tough what the milestones are, because we don't know a lot about it. So those are the special items that we should be talking about. I think the boilerplate, if you look at the metrics we got a whole book on that. I think it's going to flow pretty well. And then annually, it's our priority is set by the money we spend every year. So that annual plan is a simple book of numbers. We either get them done or we don't get them done. So I hope that helps the board kind of see what we deal with each year. We know our budgeting process goes from April or May through September. And we have a lot of discussion, not so much about the boilerplate, but the stuff that we're trying to learn to get done for the following year to make sure we make our goals at the end of 10 years. And that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%.
To spend more time on and get better at doing that. And of course, EOR plays a key role in this, and they should fill out their sheet for themselves about, well, we've got to see what they say.
Maybe
Because I can't predict how long floodplain, I mean, after being in a mod, I think it's going to be a lot longer than we thought it was going to be. It's my impression. So, you know, I thought maybe 2 or 3 years, but it's probably going to be a lot longer. What I heard at the mod conference about people that are already doing this and are 2 or 3 years ahead of us on this.
Yeah.
You know, we're not moving very fast, in my opinion. And I don't know what the reason is, but I don't know that will be any different. But as Mike says, people said that about projects too, and we were able to, you know, contract the timeline by being innovative and doing things differently and taking out loans to expedite stuff and, you know, doing things a lot different than other people did. And we were able to do stuff in 10 years that took other people 20 or 25 or 30 years to do.
Okay.
So I hope that provides a little perspective to you also in terms of how you want to look at this.
Super helpful. And again, like, you know, if you have these constants that are happening year in and year out that are pretty well documented and structured, and it's just, you know, business as usual, if you will, but that's not you know, those are the non-negotiables, right? It's the ones that are the special items, those stretch goals that you speak of. I mean, I'm sure that's what, you know, that's probably significantly more fun to a certain point, right? To be able to problem solve and making sure that all is happening in the fashion that it is. So that's where I want the focus to be, right? Is on that side of things. I am curious, and I have two questions. I will, you know, Manager Loth, I will make sure that I mention that as well, that you put in the chat here. But when it comes to the financials, all right, when it comes to funding and budgeting, et cetera, like how is that managed? How do we convey that? Like, what does that process look like? How deep into the organization do those numbers go where we understand those metrics or the financials to support some of these projects, et cetera?
Emily, why don't you set into a budget for this year? Not for 25, but for 24. And he'll see, and I saw what we spent against what we forecasted. So when you go through that budget, and it's organized again by administration, by goals, and by programs, you know, a lot of programs, and then by projects, which are the things that you can't forecast very well.
Sure.
You know, so, and you'll see that, and in some projects we didn't make it because something came up and we didn't spend the money, or we decided to spend somewhere else that moved faster. So you go through those, you can see if we're underspent on something, it didn't get done for some reason.
Yeah.
So, and that might give you some insight. It's pretty darn detailed.
Yeah. And do you all like set that budget? Who builds the budget like annually?
We do.
You do. Okay, perfect.
Well, the staff in our engineering firm brings in May a recommendation against the 10-year plan of what they think we should be tackling for that year.
Okay.
So EOR plays a very key point on this. And so if we don't push them, they can drag their feet pretty much as they want.
Okay.
They get paid annually. So this process is probably pretty good. I mean,
if they do work, but they're trying to, we always push them to do the right work, the right focus work, you know, the 80-20. So
yeah, they would like to just do work on a lot of things, but we got to work on the right things. So, you know, and that's where the 10-year plan comes in to keep us on track. And then if we learn something, then we have to change course a little bit too.
Okay.
But, so they do a lot of that foresight and say what we can handle next year and how long it's going to take. And, you know, some of these projects, we thought we're going to be done in a year and a half, and we're still, some of them that take 3 years because you got to convince property owners to cooperate with you, and you may have to buy some property, which takes a long time.
Okay. All right.
I think I can send you that, and you'll get a feel for what's going on.
100%. Yeah, and I'm glad, like, there's, at the end of the day, like, a lot of that is happening right internally within the board. And when it comes to, you know, I mean, you have the control, right? And that's kind of, that was the biggest question for me, which is great. Okay, last thing here. Manager Anderson, we want to ensure that we have the feedback, right, from her, and that she did participate in this. I guess I'm curious, like, is there something defined? Do we need to send a particular email? Do you want me to send an email direct to her that kind of sums some of this stuff up and bring some context to it? I don't know. Is there anything extra that needs to be done to ensure that, you know, we don't keep running forward here and then we have something that kind of pulls us back over the course of the next couple of weeks?
Well, I have a suggestion. I think that probably Mike and I are probably best equipped to work with Manager Anderson on this.
Okay. And
my thought would be that after we get the feedback from the CAC and we think our current version or the one we settle on is pretty close.
Yep.
Send her a note and ask her, hey, here it is, Manager Anderson. We'd like your opinion about it, and it needs to be in writing, however you want to do it, but give us a feedback. Okay. And then also at the same time, ask her to do this next assignment, which she'll probably be more easily engaged in.
Sure.
To a certain extent, I think part of this is because she feels maybe we don't need this.
Okay.
Because we're so well organized in different areas, but I think there's always room for improvement, and you're helping us find those ways to improve. So that's why you're here. Okay. But I think we can ask her what her priorities are based upon the 10-year plan, and have her do the same exercise that you're asking us to do to be ready for the next meeting, so she can jump in there.
Okay.
Get the vision of that, you know, if she wants to compare it against the vision, fine, or just what her thoughts are on the 10-year plan. Okay. And she's been around 15 years longer than I am, so I'm sure she'll have some thoughts on that.
I've
Mike?
given her a little grace too because she had major knee surgery.
Yes, that's true too.
Out of commission for some number of weeks here, so.
She did mention that. And honestly, when she was present, she seemed very engaged. So, you know, again, I want to make sure there is inclusivity there and that she doesn't feel like we've just kept, you know, kind of running forward here, that we do kind of incorporate it. Manager Loth, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, it has to do with Manager Anderson. I think initially before she understood or kind of participated in the sessions that she did, she was kind of thinking that this process wasn't necessary, but I agree with you that as soon as she did participate, I think she was quickly convinced that this was a very worthwhile process. I'm just wondering, I'm always interested in her perspective, given her tenure and knowledge of everything that we do. Is it possible that after Manager Schmaltz and Mike get with her, if there's anything that, I don't want to go back and redo the work we've done, but if there's anything that could be like 15 minutes set aside for her to, you know, elaborate on anything that she is in favor of or against, before we move into this next phase of the project.
And I'll make sure that happens, right? When the time is right. You know, for you to know, you know, my biggest perspective on a lot of this stuff is, and I'm sure you see this day in and day out, is, you know, the buy-in needs to be there. You know, we don't just do things to do things and just kind of drag people through processes and new initiatives, etc. Like there needs to be alignment and full buy-in from every individual in order for this to serve the purpose that we intend. So I wouldn't have it any other way, right? And that's always been on the back of my mind, right? I'm always kind of looking to see if she's present. I know she's had surgery and whatnot, so we're sensitive to that. But we do want to give her some protected space to be able to vocalize some feedback, right? And if there's massive fundamental changes, then we'll do our best to kind of curb that and kind of backpedal a little bit and ensure that, you know, we are prioritizing accordingly. But if there are some subtle, impactful dial turns that could come from someone like that has that level of experience and tenure, it'd be silly to not bring that to the table.
Yeah, I think, as Mike mentioned, Manager Anderson doesn't have a lack of ability to communicate. So when she gets a chance, she'll communicate. She has a tendency to kind of wait towards the end of the budget cycle before she really shows her cards, for example. So we're all working, and then we get down to the last 3 weeks, and now we figure out, you know, some pretty big suggestions and comments about it, and that causes a little angst on the people that have been toiling and pulling the cart forward, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel it. So, and I've only been here a little while, so I get it. Okay, that sounds good.
That's what makes it interesting. We all have to work together, right? And that's why we have 5 votes.
Yeah.
Because the decision will always come out.
100%.
We have to vote. And sometimes we just have to vote. And, you know, that's it. I mean, this is real world. So,
yeah,
everybody can't be happy always.
Sure. I respect that. Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll call for a motion then to adjourn.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Manager Baki. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Roll call, Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz, aye. So motion adjourned. Good session again, Yanni.
Appreciate that.
Thanks Yanni, for your help and coordination in this. Thank you.
I'm having a lot of fun and learning a lot as well. So I'm enjoying this, and I wish you all happy holidays. And yeah, I look forward to the next steps here. So we'll get those emails out and get everything moving forward.
Right, we got Christmas next week too. Well, we'll see everybody Thursday night too. We got another meeting on Thursday.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Yanni. See y'all
Have a good one.
Thursday.
Everybody.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.